All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Intuition Health Show. It is so great to be with you again on this Sunday. Thank you for joining us. We have an incredible guest and show for you today. It's one of my favorite guests to have on the show. It is Dr. Will Tuttle, and he is celebrating and promoting his brand new book. It is called Food for Freedom: Reclaiming Our Health and Rescuing Our World. So his book, The World Peace Diet, is one of my favorites, but I'm sure this is going to be, just as good, if not better. And it's actually, I wanted it to be here. I ordered it, but it's going to arrive today. It hasn't shown up yet though. So I wanted to have it to show on the show, but I'll have it later today, I'm guessing. So anyways, we'll get to hear all about that. Give you a brief introduction for Dr. Tuttle here, and the book. So basically the book is an exploration into the underlying cultural food narratives in our society and how they have eroded our freedom, health, spirituality, and awareness. It aims to provide alternatives that promote these qualities and to offer a wide range of practical steps that we can each take to reinvigorate and liberate our lives and our culture. So a book that is right up my alley. This is this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I'm excited for this. And I've got a link for you guys to pick up the book on Amazon in the description box of this video. So I highly encourage you to go check that out and pick up a copy. Dr. Tuttle is also, as I mentioned, the author of the international bestseller, The World Peace Diet, published in 18 languages. It's pretty incredible. He is a recipient of the Courage of Conscience Award and the Empty Cages Prize. He is also the author of several other books on spirituality, intuition, and social justice, as well as the creator of online wellness and advocacy programs. He's a former Zen monk and creator of 10 albums. He's a musician of uplifting original piano music and has been featured in a number of documentary films. He's the co-founder of the Worldwide Prayer Circle for Animals. He is a frequent radio, television, and online presenter. And with his spouse, Madeleine, a Swiss visionary artist, he has delivered thousands of lectures in all 50 states and in 50 countries. So let's get Dr. Tuttle in here. Dr. Tuttle, welcome. Thank you for being here. Oh, can you hear me? Are you there, Dr. Tuttle? Did we lose you? Oh, I don't know. We might have lost Dr. Tuttle here. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, he's frozen. There we go. Are you there, Dr. Tuttle?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. All right, we lost you there for just a second, but thank you for being on the show. It's an honor to have you on, as always.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great to be here. And I do have a copy of free producers. And thanks so much for your kind words about the World Peace Diet and the other things we're up to. And yeah, go ahead. Should I just go ahead and talk about some of the main ideas, or how would you like to proceed here?
Yeah, no, that would be perfect. Just to kind of give you a quick little starter question, I'll let you take off with it and share everything. Okay. I was just going to mention, I think when people hear the title of the book, Food for Freedom, I think most of the people watching are from the US or Canada or Europe or somewhere, and they're probably thinking we live in a free country. Hopefully in the last couple of years, they've maybe questioned that a little bit, but for the most part, I think people think that they're free. So what significance does food have in the context of our freedoms? And if you want to just run with that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, right, Matt. I know. I mean, that's it. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I think really we need to, especially now, I think in the last 4 years have shown us the tremendous concentration of power and wealth in the hands of what I call the globalist plutocrats. There's a very small, relatively small number of people who control most of the wealth in the world. And they also, through wealth translates directly into power. And so through that, they're able to control the media, the narratives. That's really the big thing. You control the narratives in the media and governmental agencies and universities and in entertainment industry and Hollywood and all of these, the medical and pharmaceutical industry and so forth. And my PhD from UC Berkeley was on focused on education. And I was able to delve into intuition. How do we educate and develop our intuition, which is the inner authority right here. But basically, most of our education in our society is focused on having us learn to obey and trust outside authorities. From the time I'm in first grade, it's always I'm trying to please the teacher and try to write the right answer so I can get my reward and go on and get good grades, and everything goes well, and you go farther and farther, and you can get your high school diploma, your college diploma, get a master's degree, a PhD, go farther and farther. And what I realize is the farther you go, the more intelligence is reduced in many ways, because we learn more and more to trust the outside experts. And then eventually we become one ourselves, and then we have everyone respects us because we know we've gone through the system. But what I've really discovered, and I think people are waking up to this, is that the entire system is corrupt, and it's organized and controlled by a relatively small number of people who are concentrating their wealth more and more. I mean, just in 2018, before the whole thing, the pandemic, the studies showed that the 1% of the population of the world has the equal amount of wealth as everyone else in the entire world, right? So, and then just a few years later, in 2022, they did the same analysis. Oxfam did it, and it was double. Right, 1% of the people have twice as much wealth as the other 99% of the people. And like I say, this it's getting more and more skewed every single day. More and more wealth is going into the hands. And so, I've been a vegan for 44 years, since 1980, and the underlying thrust of my whole life really has been about freedom, about liberating animals, liberating humans, liberating our consciousness, connecting with our intuition, the inner guidance system, that is really the only thing we have to help us live our unique life, is our inner guidance system. And yet we live in an education system that just pulls us away from that continually, to trust outside authorities on how to be healthy, to trust outside authorities on how to get ahead, everything. It's all about what they think, what they say. Yeah. And so propaganda works best when there's some truth mixed in with mostly deception. So if there is some truth in the mainstream media. I mean, some of the things they say are probably objectively more or less true, but the underlying big picture, the idea that carbon is a dangerous poison, or the idea that germs are out to get us all the time, and the only way we can be healthy and defend ourselves is to run to a doctor or a pharmacy to have some kind of a drug to protect us. These basic big picture stories, this is the problem. And the idea that the only way I can get protein is through killing animals and eating their flesh, or the only way I can get calcium is through killing cows and stealing their milk. And these basic stories are wrong. I mean, they're lies. It's not true. And yet we're all taught these by experts who tell us these things. And so it's extremely disturbing to people to realize that these trusted sources of information are my teachers, my governmental representatives, the media, my doctor, are lying. Maybe they're not know they're lying. Maybe they're just repeating lies that they were told. Sometimes that's true. They're good people just repeating. They've been miseducated, And I've gone through that. I mean, for many years, I would say from 2006, when Al Gore came out with his whole thing about global warming, I believed it. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I knew animal agriculture was much better for the environment. And so I was always talking about how raising all these cows and pigs and chickens, it's destroying ecosystems and rainforests. And water aquifers are being sucked dry, and overfishing of the oceans, and though I'll add climate change to that too. Why not?
Yeah.
it's a good one. Just add it on. The experts say it's that it's causing climate change. The experts, they must know. And the whole vegan movement went running in that direction. And pretty soon we didn't even talk about anything but except climate change. We didn't talk about the fact that we're cutting down rainforests at 5 acres per second and completely, all these other things. We don't talk about that. We just talk about climate change because that's what they want us to talk about. That's all they ever talk about.
Yep.
So that's what I said. But the point is, I was guilty of that. I went right along with that from 2006 until about 2014. And I even wrote articles about it. And then I started to smell something isn't quite right here. Wait a minute. And I realized this is one of those things where there's an official narrative, and anyone who tries to go, any climate scientist who questioned that, they lost their funding. Very often they lost their job at the university. And so I started studying, and I know this pattern. It's the same thing in animal agriculture. When people came out and said, well, wait a minute, you don't need to eat dairy to have healthy teeth and bones, they started losing their funding. No. Don't go against the official narrative of the pharmaceutical meat medical complex. And so it's the same thing with a lot of things, actually, with health. We saw that with the idea that the only way you can be healthy is to get tested, right, with this very invasive test. And then if you test positive, then you better get vaccinated or have something like that. I mean, and these things, once we start to study this, and I think, like you probably, I started spending hundreds of hours actually doing research in alternative, not in mainstream media, because that's controlled. And realizing that back when I was a child, I was born in the 1950s, early 1950s. So when I was a kid, there was very few vaccines, and people were suspicious of them. They were like, wait a minute. And so there was only a few, and there was only a few companies that were making them. Most of the companies making vaccines had gone out of business because they were getting sued. There was so much damage, and so they finally in 1986 they twisted the arm of Congress and they passed this law saying that if anyone was damaged by a vaccine, the vaccine companies they have no liability. So then it exploded. And so the rate of chronic disease when I was a kid was less than 10%. It was like 8% or something like that. Now it's 67%. The rate of chronic disease in the United States is 67%. That means people that are chronically sick that need medications. Yeah. Think of the wealth that brings into the pharmaceutical medical complex of people that just have to have medications they take every single day for diabetes or liver disease or kidney disease or high blood pressure or osteoporosis. It's a whole litany of stuff. And so many of these things. And what I realize is that when you stick poisons into little babies, it doesn't, sometimes it shows up right away. And it's been well documented. There is a huge increase in children in chronic disease, but a lot of it is later, when they get into their 30s and 40s and 50s, and then they start really raking in the money because the person's basic health has been attacked at a very fundamental level. Because when you look at the ingredients right on the CDC website of what's in these things, like propylene glycol and these adjuvants and toxic, mercury and aluminum, heavy metals, animal, all kinds of camel and monkey and pig and chicken, really crazy stuff is in these things. So all of this stuff is just rolled out as safe and effective, and you're not allowed to question it. And it's just makes so much money, and that money is turned right into narrative control. And the governmental agencies that are supposed to be protecting us are captured completely by the industries, because it's a revolving door, between the industry and the governmental agencies. So this is not that hard to understand. It's pretty basic, but the problem is that our intelligence has been reduced through the food. I talk about this quite a bit in the World Peace Diet and also in Food for Freedom. When we're eating food where we don't want to think about where it comes from, we're eating bacon. We don't want to look deeply. We don't want to care deeply. We don't want to really look behind things too much every day in our food. Yeah. And pretty soon we get that habit. Well, we're not going to look too deeply into anything. We'll just trust the authorities. Whatever they say must be good. And the problem is, then the authorities say, well, you're free, right? You're free. Free to do what? Just sit in front of a computer screen in a little cubicle to eke out a living, to try to pay a mortgage or pay the rent? I mean, what kind of freedom do we really have? How did people live in the past? There's this whole story that we're healthier than we've ever been, and our lives are better than they've ever been, and I think we have this idea that somehow technology makes our lives better, makes us happier. But the thing is, we have to understand that we're being lied to about a lot of these things. I've spent my life studying ancient wisdom texts. You go back 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 years and read these ancient wisdom teachings from China or from India, from other parts of the world, in the Middle East also, these ancient wisdom teachings, and they are so profound. And many people reached incredibly high states of consciousness, of liberation, where they were connected to truths that we have lost. Most people today, unfortunately, believe that they're this physical body, but this is what they are, this matter, this material object. This is me, and when I die, that's it. Or, these incredibly shallow materialistic ideas that the universe just started because of a big bang, and everything just evolved from random bumping of gases and molecules, and we have intelligence and consciousness and creativity just because of a random. I mean, that's a philosophy for slaves, and that's a science for slaves. It's all for slaves. It's to get people to think we're just matter. We have to compete with each other and get what we can, and try to. The only happiness comes from consuming and being comfortable. I mean, we don't know. We don't even know what we are. We don't know who we are. We don't know why we're here. We're lost. I mean, completely lost. Our science does nothing but dumb us down and create surveillance systems that track us and know what we're doing and take away our freedom, erode it continually, to the point now where our children get their identity from a cell phone and how they're doing on Facebook, and suffer terribly from suicidal thoughts. I mean, the kind of mental illness and meaninglessness that this philosophy and this worship of scientific materialism has created. So what the Food for Freedom book is really about is understanding the big picture of our society, and that when we decide that we're going to imprison animals and steal their purposes, that whatever we sow, we reap. And so we do that millions of times every day to cows and pigs and chickens. We steal their babies, we steal their purposes, we steal their milk and their eggs and their lives and everything. And we somehow think that magically we're worthy to have lives of meaning ourselves, and we don't see that we have created the same thing. We've created overlords who look at us the same way we look at cows and pigs and chickens, as just objects to be used and exploited and manipulated and culled when there's too many of them. And so if we want to have leaders that actually have compassion and wisdom, we need to have some compassion and wisdom ourselves. The leaders always mirror the people. And so we need to, this is the great calling, is for us as individuals to do the inner work to liberate ourselves from these lies of animal agriculture, that we need to imprison animals to be healthy, that we need to put poisons in our body to be healthy, that we're in a war with nature, that nature's surrounding us with toxic bacteria that's going to make us sick. I mean, it's all a bunch of lies. The whole idea of contagion, really. I mean, that's another whole thing we can get into. I have never gotten sick from somebody else. Never. I mean, that's a joke. That's ridiculous. How's somebody else going to make me sick?
Yeah.
That's an utter, complete ridiculous. That's such an absurdity. I mean, my health is my responsibility. If I take in poisons, yeah, if someone can poison me, right? They can put something in my drink and kill me with a poison, maybe. But what's really contagious is our thoughts and our feelings. We're very telepathic. And when you have a bunch of people afraid and all thinking that they're going to get sick from each other, then yeah, they all get sick from each other because that's what they think.
Yeah.
It's their thoughts that are contagious. It's not. We have to really get out of this. That's the word, I guess, matrix. I don't usually use that word, but this hypnotic trance that insinuates itself. And I think one of the most important things we can do is disconnect from mainstream media. I have not had a television for over 50 years, or listen to the radio, or mainstream programming, or read a newspaper. I mean, if I engage at all in mainstream media, it's just to look at how ridiculous the propaganda is. It's just so ridiculous. So anyway, that I went on too long, but that's some of the basic idea of freedom, because freedom really means liberating ourselves. And I just want to say one other thing quickly, is that this idea of freedom, it's a very slippery idea, because a lot of people, and I understand it, it's true, freedom does not mean license, right? Like corporations have the freedom to pollute streams, and then they just sort of pass on the cost to the consumers that we have to pay to clean it up, right? That's not freedom. That's irresponsible license. So the kind of freedom I'm talking about is sovereignty, the sovereignty of individual beings. And we are individual divine beings. We are, just like animals are too, to live our lives and celebrate our lives and take responsibility for our lives, take responsibility for the consequences of our actions. That's it. That's freedom. And that's, with a life without freedom is not a life. I mean, if you like what we do to these animals, they're born into slavery. They're born right. If we try to have cows and pigs and chickens eat their flesh, and we were doing it with wild animals, it would be really hard because they'd be fighting like mad. But since they're born into slavery, they don't resist, really. They don't know any difference. And it's the same thing with us. We're in many ways born into slavery, and we don't realize it. We need to understand that what we are is far greater than what we're taught, and what the examples that we have of people around us, and do the inner work to liberate our consciousness.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there's so much that you just said that, it completely resonates. And, I call it the industry spell, right? That's the trance that the people are under, that they don't understand who they are. They don't understand what they are. They don't know what health is. They don't know what food is, all these illusions that we've been given that make us, not be able to see clearly. And, personally, so I grew up, obviously not a vegan. I worked at a meat counter throughout high school and through college. And I remember a few times where I was like holding a chicken breast, and I was picturing like, oh, this used to be walking around. I thought in a field, but I'm sure it was in a cage, in a factory farm somewhere. But, I knew it was an animal, but I had this disconnect where, I in my mind, I guess I thought that farm animals were some like robotic, just unconscious creature that, it's just food, right? And then for health reasons, not for veganism or anything like that, I started getting into eating more plants, more of a plant-based diet, and I was juicing. And so I was taking in a lot of more plant foods and a whole lot less animal foods. And then about 6 months into that, I saw the documentary Earthlings, and
Mm,
that just, it completely devastated me. It hit me on such a level where, I mean, I was, I sobbed for like an hour, and I was just so angry and sad, and I felt betrayed and all these things. And I just couldn't believe that I didn't recognize that they weren't just robotic, creatures. They were individuals, like you said, and sentient creatures that, were just like our family pets, or just like us, and they had the same basic desires and wants. And so, that was a big part of me, beginning to break out of the industry spell and the illusions that I had about, I thought I was an omnivore. I thought, animals were robots. So it's like, all these things started to shift in my mind, and I started to, break free of some of those shackles that, I had been given since, childhood, and made to believe things that clearly were not true. And so, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I do think that because I had been eating the fruits and vegetables so much more leading up to that point, that it allowed me to be more receptive to that message. So can you share a little bit about how, like, eating fruits and vegetables and not eating flesh and secretions of animals, how that affects how we think and how we act?
right. Yeah, that's a really good connection. It's actually something that we can experience, I think. And fruits and vegetables, of course, are natural purifiers and blood cleansers. And so when we start eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, our mind and our body are not separate. It's one thing. The mind and the body are completely one. And so the more our body is polluted and corrupted and full of toxic waste and chemicals, which really concentrate in animal foods. I mean, even organic meat, dairy, and eggs. I mean, these animals are still breathing and bringing in a lot of toxins, and toxins just concentrate up the food chain. And there's all kinds of toxins. But most people are not eating organic, meat, dairy, and eggs. And so there's over 10,000 different drugs and hormones, as well as antibiotics, that are just routinely injected into cows and pigs and chickens, factory farm fish. 2/3 of fish are factory farmed. And so people are getting, if they eat animal foods, they're getting a huge, every day, every meal, a dose of toxic chemicals that their body has to deal with. And the body sequesters it away. But all of those chemicals and toxins, plus is what I refer to as the inherent toxicity of these foods: saturated fat, cholesterol, acidifying, inflammatory animal protein. All of these things are hard on the body, and they tend to cause a fog, I think, a kind of a brain fog in people that it's pretty hard to notice it, because if we're just used to it. And I think one of the things that starts to happen when we eat fruits and vegetables, we start to cleanse. The body naturally wants to cleanse, and we actually give it the opportunity to do that. And what I did when I went vegetarian and then vegan, I started fasting actually too. And fasting, like water fasting, really accelerates the process. But juicing, like you're juicing, just vegetable juices, man, that's great cleanser. That cleanses the blood and the tissues, and these toxins start going out, and the brain fog begins to sort of dissipate. And then the other kind of toxins that are in these foods are what I call metaphysical toxins. So we're eating despair and fear and terror and panic and anxiety, and we're causing it. We're voting for it, paying for it, causing suffering to these animals. And then we don't just cause it, we eat it. I mean, it's just diabolical. It's diabolical. It's satanic, the whole thing. It's just hideous when we realize what's actually going on. To have people paying and causing all this suffering, right then they're ashamed of themselves at a deep level. But we don't stop there. Then we have people eat it. It's mocking humanity, turning us into vultures. People say, "Oh, I eat like a lion." Nobody eats like a lion. They don't go out and bite with their mouth, and they eat like vultures. They eat dead, rotting carcasses, basically, and it's horrible. And so the mind and body are so harmed by this that it's easy to enslave people. People, they can't think straight. They can't feel. They don't want to open. It's traumatic. Like when someone is traumatized, like I was as a child too. I was eating a lot of meat, dairy, and eggs, and bacon, and everything else. I didn't realize it at the time, but my body was being traumatized by the horror that I was eating. And yet everybody, my parents and teachers and everybody said, oh, this is what you got to eat. You want to be healthy. And I even participated. I killed animals, at summer camp, chickens and so forth, because that was what we did. I was like, okay, I was a teenager at that point. So I participated in it. I thought, yeah, it's, man's got to do what a man's got to do. We got to kill our animals. And so all of that, but it was really like, you saw that film. For me, it was living at the farm in Tennessee and being in a community of people that were basically vegans, that I realized it's not necessary. It was that example. And so I think once I moved away from eating animal foods, like the same thing that happened to you, things started clearing, not just the physical body, but we have other bodies. We have an astral body, or you could call it an emotional body. And that emotional body is getting polluted also by all the terror and pain and fear. So we're eating vegetables. I mean, these are gifts. We have a vegetable garden. We have 75 fruit trees now. We grow. We pour love into the land here. We're getting apricots. We're getting figs. We just got a bunch of cherries. And so we love these trees. They love us back. It's this beautiful thing. Now we're getting tomatoes, cucumbers. So we put love into the land, and the earth loves us back, and we work in harmony. So we're eating love. We're eating joy. We're eating freedom. We're eating abundance. We're eating these foods. They're available. We can eat them. And so we're not only cleansing the physical body, we start cleansing the emotional body and the spiritual body, which is really where our consciousness abides. And so then we can start making connections. We can start actually figuring things out. I remember it was so interesting. I was always pretty good in school. I was good. I got on the honor roll. I remember in high school, and then in college I went to a pretty good college. And then I got my master's degree at San Francisco State. Then I became a vegan in 1980. And then I went to Korea and became a Zen Buddhist monk. And I was meditating a lot. I was already meditating. So what I discovered, it was interesting. Then I came back to the United States. I decided not to be a monk. I decided to get my PhD at Berkeley. But I didn't have very good grades because I got really rebellious when I was younger in college. So the reason I got into Berkeley, which was hard to get into, was you had to take an intelligence test, the GRE, Graduate Record Exam. And I took that test, and my IQ was in the top 0.2% of the population. It was like off the charts.
Wow.
And I had taken these kind of tests before, and I was always pretty good. But then I went vegan and started meditating a lot, like thousands of hours of meditation and vegan. I mean, that's how you increase intelligence. You can make connections. The mind is clear, it's bright, it's aware, it's free, it's happy. That's the last thing the globalist plutocrats want. They do not want people who are empowered, who are asking questions, who are intelligent, and who don't buy their obvious lies about everything. Yeah. That's the last thing. They want to dumb everybody down. We have scientists working to try to dumb down cows and pigs and chickens so that they can sit in a cage and not bang their head against the cage all the time. That's bad for profit. So they could just sit there and not fight with each other and everything. So they're working hard to dumb down these animals so they just sit there and be meat. Well, it's the same thing. They're working hard to do the same thing to us, humans, to turn us into livestock. So we just go along with the agenda. So we as infinite manifestation of not infinite, but as manifestations of infinite consciousness, it's our responsibility to understand and to live our unique life. We're only here on this earth for a few years. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be put into a jail cell, a mental jail, and to live our lives just making somebody else wealthy and not question the official narratives and frittering away this precious opportunity for creativity and joy and contributing like you're doing, creating a context for people to question these official narratives that enslave us. So you're right. It's once we clean up our food, our mind begins to clarify, and then it creates a positive feedback loop. The clearer our mind gets, the more we are drawn to healthy food. The more we're drawn to healthy food, the clearer our mind gets. It just goes in that direction, and it's a vicious cycle too. The more toxic, the more we smoke and drink alcohol and eat meat, and the more we don't care, and the more we harm. It's just so we got to take responsibility ourselves to create that virtuous cycle of uplifting our vibration. It's raising the vibration of our consciousness with high quality food and high quality relationships and a high quality way that we invest our time every day, basically.
Yeah, that is such a great and important point. Because, I mean, it really puts it into, it really brings some clarity to why I think, social media, everything is basic. We're just inundated with distractions. The algorithms are set up to give us the most mind-numbing information and distractions. Right. They make fast food and animal products the cheapest, fast food mostly, the cheapest foods out there for people to consume. It's on every corner. It's super accessible, and they make the healthiest foods the most expensive, obviously. So, all these things that keep our minds numb, basically unable to see things clearly, and it puts us into that fight or flight state. It keeps everybody kind of like on edge, right, and looking out for themselves and not really caring about others because they're just in that survival mode. So yeah, I mean that. It really it just kind of sparked that thought there that everything is set up to keep us from finding that clarity. There's no time. People don't meditate. People don't spend any time in silence at all. It's just wake up, get on some electronic, listen to the TV or the radio, go to work, and go to bed. So it's just, and then at the same time you're just feeding in that fear, that metaphysical energy that you mentioned from the low quality foods and food-like products that people eat. So yeah, I mean, what would you say, how would somebody, like, what would be some tips for just helping people get out of that cycle?
Yeah, well, there's actually a lot to it. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but then there's quite a few things to learn and even more to unlearn. A lot of it's unlearning. And actually, this book, Food for Freedom, it's pretty big. It's a little bit bigger, actually, than the World Peace Diet. It's almost 400 pages. I have another book that I've already written, which will be coming out within the next month or two, called The World Peace Way. And that is the book. It's 6 chapters, and each chapter has one of the 6 keys to health for ourselves and our society. So what we can actually do is read The World Peace Way or live that. And it's basically the practical application. So the first key is nutrition. So the whole chapter on nutrition basically focuses on what we're talking about, food and eating healthy, organic, whole, plant-based food. So we can talk for hours about just how important it is to question the official narrative, not only about like not eating animal-based foods because they concentrate toxins and misery and everything else. But now the vegan movement's being attacked, I think, deliberately. And the whole idea, most people think that when they're eating a vegan food, it means it has to come in a package. There has to be a burger. I'm a vegan. I eat vegan burgers and vegan ice cream and vegan cheese.
Right.
So I'm a vegan. When I went vegan back in the 80s, there was none of that. And I'm so glad. If you were vegan, you ate fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and grains, and that was it. You ate whole foods. And now the vegan movement is the greatest enemy of the globalist cabal. And so they're trying to destroy it by making the vegan movement look like it's a junk food movement. And it looks like that. I mean, lab-grown meat, impossible burgers, processed foods, franken foods that are plant-based, genetically engineered with lots of preservatives and additives, saturated fat, not organic, glyphosate, all this stuff. So we really need to be proactive to eat whole, organic, plant-based foods. And like you say, mostly raw, mostly uncooked. It's really living foods. I mean, that right there is a fantastic foundation for health, not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. And it requires a fraction of the land and resources than meat and dairy and eggs do. So we can allow wildlife and habitat. I mean, it's just a win-win-win on every level. So there's that, but also to broaden the idea of nutrition to include everything that goes not only into our body, but also what we put on our skin. All our personal care products, also what we're drinking, also what we're breathing. I mean, we get nutrition not just from food. I mean, a lot of toxins concentrate in food, a lot concentrate in water. So we really need to be proactive about our water and make sure you have good filters, because we're being poisoned. Fluoride is in most of the water. It calcifies the pineal gland. It dumbs us down and reduces our spirituality. It's documented to reduce intelligence. I mean, that is proven in scientific studies. IQ goes down in women who have babies that are drinking, fluoride. So we really have to understand that we have to be proactive about our food, our water, our air. There's a lot of toxins in the air. So have a good purifier and really be conscious about, and there's a lot of indoor air pollution. So we have to be, not just buy products that outgas. All these laundry detergents, they have this word fragrance, for example.
Yeah.
That word can be a placeholder for literally an infinite number of completely toxic chemicals. All they have to do on a laundry detergent or shampoo or whatever it is, put the word fragrance, and it can be carcinogenic. It can be anything. Mm-hmm. The laws have completely given complete utter freedom from liability about this. And so we have to not be gullible. We have to understand this, that we need to read ingredients. Don't put things on our skin. Like I have never put on any sunscreen, for example. I mean, the sun, we're brainwashed to think that the sun is our enemy, that somehow the sun is going to make us sick. I mean, the sun is your greatest friend. You want to be in the sun every day, more the better, and you build up I guess you call it a callus. You get nice and brown, and I can take a lot of sun because I've been taking a lot of sun for a long time. Mm-hmm. I don't have to put on a sunscreen. And so we have to realize that the sun is amazing. It's not just light, it's information, and it's healing. Not just vitamin D, but everything. So the sun and the wind and the stars, the natural world in general, to really understand nutrition comes from nature, and be very, very choosy about anything you put on your skin. Anything you put on your skin is like eating it. It goes right into your bloodstream. And it's amazing what people put lipstick and nail polish that are full of toxic chemicals, toluene, and just unbelievable stuff. And your teeth, the whole thing, there's all kinds of sudsing agents and fluoride and so forth. So I use a toothpaste it's not even toothpaste, it's just some baking soda and peppermint oil and a little bit of salt. But we have to really be willing to question the official stories about all these different aspects of nutrition. And also another part of nutrition is what we're taking in, what we're reading, the media we're taking. That's nutrition. That's also nutrition. And a lot of people are not only eating junk food, they're taking in junk news. They turn on the TV and just get blasted with lies and fear and pornography pornography, like sexual pornography and medical pornography. I mean, it's disgusting what people are taking in through the media. So that's one chapter. It's just about nutrition and really, again, being proactive to be mindful about our nutrition. Because this body mind it's garbage in, garbage out. We have to understand that. So that's one. And then the next one is meditation, the quality of our consciousness, to take time every day to turn our attention this way in. If we're always looking out, then we lose ourselves. We're just always doing. What are we? So it's critical to take time every day to be aware of the being that we are and to question, what are we? What actually are we? Are we just this physical body and the accumulation of memories and thoughts and feelings that we identify, put a name on? Oh, I'm Will, or I'm John, or I'm Mary, and this is what I like and what I don't like, and this is all my friends and neighbors, and this whole accumulation, and it centers around this sense of a me and a body, and if we contract around that, then we are always trying to get something or keep something away. We're in a continual struggle because we're this little thing that's going to die, and we have to get money and have people like us and put on a good mask. We have to have a good mask that we can present to the world. We're alienated from ourselves. We think that that's what we are. We have to take the time to do the work, to turn within and realize that what we are is watching this whole thing. We are the infinite eternal consciousness that was never born and will never die, and we're not this thing. And so when we understand that, then we're free. We have a sense of freedom because we understand that when this body dies, that's nothing. That's like taking a coat off. It's not us. We are the life that makes us possible, and it gives us a sense of compassion and kinship with others. We realize that one life is living through everyone, every manifestation. And so we naturally want the best for others because we're all related. And this is so critical. If we allow ourselves to be pushed by the globalist plutocrats to always be struggling to make money or be, liked by everybody, then we don't take time to discover what we actually are, which is not a thing. It's far beyond, it's what makes all these things possible. So that's number 2. That's really important. Number 3 is relationships. So many people, I've seen it too in the vegan movement. They eat healthy vegan food and organic and whole, but then they're angry at their mother and their father or their spouse or whatever it is, or their boss. And our body is a pharmacy. If I have anger or fear or jealousy or pride, all these things that come from delusion, the body's creating toxins to go along with that. If I'm feeling gratitude and joy and love and just sending love to people, the body is creating harmony within it. So our relationships, so we can create harmonious relationships by being loving with each other. That's a really important point. A lot of people that think that, well, I just have a toxic relationship. Well, so why do you have it? We're creating it. We're creating these things. So to really learn to be loving, and there's a lot of studies that show that our words, if we, that like, if in a relationship, if 50% of what I'm saying is loving and 50% is kind of critical, that like 100% of the time that ends in divorce. That's not good enough. 50-50 is not. It needs to be at least 80 or 90% kind and loving and appreciative words to people around us, to have a healthy relation, to have really a sense. We can do that. We can actually be a force for uplifting others, and we can smile, and everyone is having a hard time right now. And so the more we can be loving and create positive, healthy relationships, that makes it better for everyone. So that's number 3. Number 4 is creativity. Creativity is critical. If we're not being creative, if we're just living our lives in some way to get along, then we're missing out on the reason that we're alive. That's why, for me, music is really important, and writing, and having a creative outlet that frees up everything. And it's related to vibratory states. One thing I think that's interesting to think about is how so much of the art and the music nowadays is destructive. The whole modern art, like having this art that's just random kind of ugly stuff, and architecture is another, these buildings that are imposing and huge, and music. I mean, the music has gotten, to me, really violent and disharmonious. So we have to be, if I'm a musician or an artist or an architect or whatever, or a writer, to create creations that uplift and bring light and help people. These are important things. So creativity is a huge responsibility, but it's also something for us to engage in. And then another one is nature. Nature is really, we're disconnected from nature. So just being in nature, there's this thing in Japan called forest bathing. They say, people who are sick, just go out in the forest and take a walk, and that heals them. It's like, I mean, it's a very healing, just being in the natural world. And we're so disconnected from nature. We're in these artificial spaces of light and everything else. Just getting out into nature every day and connecting with nature in a way that's significant is enormously helpful. So I think these are the keys that we can all cultivate. There's quite a bit to it, a lot more, I could say. But the other sixth one is exercise, using our body, right? I mean, and how we use our body. We're taught to sit in these weird chairs, and everything we do pretty much in our society. It was so great being a monk in Korea, where everything's on the floor. The toilets are in the floor. You have to squat, which is much better. I learned to squat, over the toilet. Like we sit on these little thrones with our legs dangling down, and everybody's constipated, and then we sit in these chairs that our back is slumping like this all the time. And our whole spine should be straight, so the kundalini, or the energy, can move. Everything about the way our culture is set up pretty much forces us to be unhealthy. Really, you got to understand that. I mean, everything, the clothing, the architecture, the furnishings, the fact that we're not moving like we did, the fact that we're not doing things on the floor. I don't have any furniture in the house. I'm sitting on the floor right now. I do everything on the floor because I have to get up and sit down, get up and sit down. That's exercise. That's good. So we need to really have, move our bodies and get, I do Tai Chi and Qigong every day, do things like swim, run. Our bodies are meant to be used. That's another whole thing. People don't use their bodies enough. Yoga, it's great. Stretch, handstands, all kinds of things. These are, this is the key, I think, to happiness and freedom is health. Health is really important. A lot of people who go vegan say, well, I'm not vegan for my health. I'm vegan for the animals. And I say, well, so what are you eating? Oh, I just eat, whatever. That's not a good idea, because these so-called vegans who are not in it for their health, pretty soon they're sick. They're eating Impossible burgers and all this non-organic food. And then people say, well, you're a vegan, but you're sick all the time. I don't want to do that. And so if we care about animals, we need to care about our health. Our health is a great gift to give to other people. If I'm not healthy, I drag everybody down. If I'm healthy, I can help. And health and freedom are totally connected. If we don't have our health, we don't have freedom. If I don't get up in the morning with energy and vitality and clarity, I'm a slave. I can hardly walk. I'm aches and pains. I don't have energy. That's slavery. We need to understand that health is freedom, and it's in our hands. And don't let people take away your health. Don't let any narrative give responsibility for your health, which is yours, to a doctor or to a drug, because that's poison. And that's, I have not been to a doctor, like I say, in 50 years. But I also have studied spiritual healing. So it's not just merely eating healthy food and all of that. It's really understanding that what I am is consciousness, and consciousness creates the body. It does. I mean, our body is a manifestation of our consciousness. So once we understand that and work every day to affirm our oneness with the infinite life that is the source of all life, then we have a foundation for health that goes beyond just food. Food is important, of course, and we're drawn to that healthy food by our consciousness. But we have to also understand, and a lot of vegans don't get this, which is they think that they can eat healthy food and be angry or judgmental and blame and shame and criticize everybody and somehow still stay healthy. And really, it's a much bigger picture where we have to really understand the big picture of all this. So all of these things are work together, and it's really, I think, really exciting to understand that and to be part of a movement to help people realize this also. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for being a leader and sharing, this information with people, because, it should be, these are things that we should know from childhood. But as you've talked about today, it's we're set up to fail, and we're set up to be dependent on corporations and government and institutions that want us to believe that they know better than we do for ourselves. So. Yeah, you mentioned corporations. I think are the main tool. It's like one of the main tools of the cabal that really people don't recognize. It's if it's a corporation, it's almost guaranteed that the information they're giving you is the opposite of truth. But yeah. So anyways, this was excellent. I really appreciate you writing this book, Food for Freedom. And is the World Peace Way, is it available for pre-order or anything yet, or not yet?
Oh, thanks for asking. Actually, I haven't set up any kind of a web page for that yet. I'm busy still with Food for Freedom and making it also into an audio book. So that should be coming at some point in the next, probably next month in July. But I think the main thing is just to be aware of it, I guess. I'll try to get a pre-order page up on my website, worldpeacediet.com or willtuttle.com. We have Food for Freedom, also foodforfreedom.net. But any of those will get you kind of the same place, and I'll do that. I'll get something up about world peace, the World Peace Way. There's a lot happening here, but I think the most important thing is for each one of us to just make an effort to question the official narratives. And the Food for Freedom and the World Peace Way and the World Peace Diet, those are resources that can help us, but ultimately it comes back to us. Each one of us as an individual. And you don't have to believe it because I said so. These are things that each one of us can prove for ourselves in our own lives. We can actually engage in how we live our lives, how we eat, and everything I've been talking about. And like you, discover that we have enormous power ourselves as individuals to contribute in a positive direction. And I love what you said just now, that we're kind of set up to fail in a sense. It's not our fault. We've been wounded, really. So I'm not interested in blaming or shaming anyone. It's just like you say, the corporate powers and the financial institutions sort of behind the corporations. It's easy to use that wealth. I know my father owned a whole chain of newspapers, so I was born and raised in the media. And I know in my bones, my father would say, well, we can't run that article because that advertiser wouldn't like it. The media is completely sensitive to the corporations that are paying for the ads, the pharmaceutical, medical, food, banks, petroleum, all of that. So they determine the news, and they've captured all the governmental organizations. That's what happens. The power of money does that. So you're totally right. It's really up to us, and I'm happy to help. People can contact us if they have any questions. We have on our website, Madeleine has a bunch of intuitive, it's called Madeleine's Intuitive Kitchen, Intuitive Cooking, or food preparation. And we have a tour schedule, and we have articles and books and all these things, and music. So we're happy to stay in touch with people. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in knowing a lot more about this book really does go into a lot more depth into what's really happening. The more we learn about these things, the more clear and self-reliant we can be and help others as well. Amazing.
Well, thank you so much. And just to reinforce, the message that I think you're sharing here is, I live in an HOA, and I got on the board and got us to stop using pesticides on our lawns. So our HOA is now pesticide free.
Great.
And so it just shows, I think people feel, like they can't make a difference, and so just put yourself out there, I would say, and start taking just little steps. And of course, all the things that, that Dr. Tuttle just shared, I think if you start there, like me, your mind just starts to illuminate. You start to see clearly. You think more compassionately. You especially towards yourself. And I think when you feel more compassionate and more centered in yourself, then it just percolates to every other aspect of your life. So definitely check out the book that Dr. Tuttle has published, Food for Freedom. Again, the link is in the description box down below. So I hope you go pick up a copy. And I look forward to getting the World Peace Way as well. That one sounds incredible. I think that will be, all of your books are extremely, helpful and insightful. But I'm excited for the World Peace Way because it just sounds like such a great, kind of guide to implementing everything in your life. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for writing these books, Dr. Tuttle.
You're welcome. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. And one more time, where it's theworldpeace.com or drtuttle.com?
Right. Either worldpeacediet.com or willtuttle.com. Those are probably the two biggest, and they're connected. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And I've got those linked down in the description box as well. So check out those, everybody. And again, thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us this afternoon or this morning. And we will catch you next week. All right. Always follow your raw intuition.